This is going to be a quick video. Hopefully I can get this done in 10 minutes or less. I don't want to go into a lot of detail on each topic. I just kind of want to explain how we're going to use Rapsodo. It's a new service that I'm offering to my pitching clients, all the way from 9-year-olds all the way up through pro guys. All right, depending on what level you're at, how old you are, there's different ways that we're going to use it. All right, I'm going to start off with the younger kids because I feel like there's a lot more room to build with them. One of the first questions I always ask all of my new pitchers is, what do you throw and how do you grip it, right? And even at the high school level, I get a lot of answers. I throw a 4-seam fastball, a 2-seam fastball, and then another pitch, whether it's a changeup or curveball or slider or whatever, right? I've got some kids that'll come and say, I throw a 4-seam fastball, a cutter, and then blah, 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 right? And when I ask why do you throw those pitches, there's no answer, right? It's my old pitching coach taught me these, or my team's coach taught me this. And there's a lot of guesswork because they're not using any data to determine what pitches are actually best suited for that player. Because to surprise a lot of people, every pitch doesn't work with every player, right? When I pitched all the way up through high school, I said I had a fastball, right? Then I get beyond high school and I learn I don't actually throw a fastball, I throw a cutter, okay? And there's a lot of well-intended coaches out there that are teaching these pitches, and they're not teaching the pitches incorrectly. They're just teaching the kids the wrong pitch for that player, okay? So, for example, the difference between a 4-seam fastball and a cutter is basically this is your grip, your release point on a 4-seam. This is your release point on a cutter. You're cutting the side of the ball. Okay. Now, as a pitcher, back when I played, I naturally was here and I came a little bit on the side of the ball. Well, back then in the late 90s and early 2000s, we didn't have technology like Rapsodo or TrackMan or Hawkeye or Pitch Logic or any of that. So I didn't know that I was actually releasing it here. And the difference between this and this doesn't look like much, but on the actual spin that's put on the ball and the ball's trajectory, it matters a lot, okay? Had we had this kind of technology back then, potentially my career lasts longer because I could have tried to make that adjustment to actually get better spin efficiency on the ball being here. Now, that said, depending on the release point, this might not be the best option, right? Maybe if I'm more of a guy that's out here, maybe that cutter is a better option for me, okay? And that's something that this Rapsodo, that the technology is going to help tell, right? I can eyeball a lot of experienced pitching coaches can eyeball quite a bit. I can eyeball the tilt. I can eyeball the direction of spin. What I can't eyeball and what nobody else can eyeball, regardless of what they tell you, is they're not going to be able to eyeball your spin rate. They're not going to be able to eyeball your spin efficiency. All right. And if we're going to talk about a fastball, if we're somebody that has a high spin rate, you're better off elevating that ball in the strike zone. You're going to get pop-ups and flyouts. If you're somebody that, like me, that had lower spin efficiency and a lower spin rate, you want to try to keep that lower in the zone because you're going to get rollovers and ground balls. All right. So knowing your spin rate and your spin efficiency is going to help tell you where you want to locate those pitches to get the most outs. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to go over some of these charts. All right. The Rapsodo unit in our actual bullpens, it gives live data off of every pitch. So every pitch we look at it and analyze. Okay, this is where your release point was. This is how your ball spun. Let's try to do this, and we can really manipulate the shape of the pitch, meaning how the ball moves and where it moves in relation to the distance between release point and home plate. All right, this is really valuable in that. But let's go over some of this. All right. Basic stuff, velocity, it's going to give you pitch by pitch. Now, this is one of my high school pitchers' profiles here that I'm using. He throws a fastball, curveball, and a changeup. All right, 4-seam fastball, curveball, and changeup. So here's your velo. You can see we went about 80% effort He's probably a little bit higher than 80% effort because he throws 89 on his fastball, and he's at 80 here. All right, curveball, you can see is about 68 miles an hour, and then he's sitting average 70 on his changeup. All right, so that's a pretty good spread for 80% effort. Okay, now strike zone, we're working on some stuff. It's going to tell where each pitch went in the strike zone. This was done a couple days ago. It's early November right now, so I'm not worried about this with him. We're looking more at the spin rate and the release point work. Okay. Speaking of, here we've got our movement spray chart. So how the ball moves, where it moves. Now this isn't a strike zone. This is a break plot. A perfectly straight gyro ball that doesn't move at all is going to be on the center of the X and Y axis right there. Right. So you can see his changeup and his fastball are both plotting up here, and then his curveball is plotting down here, meaning the ball is dropping to the left. Right. That's what we want to see. On his release spray chart, now this is something that we've been working on, all right, it's tunneling, and I'll show you that in a couple more slides and more in depth, but out of the 15 pitches that he threw, they're all coming out of the same release point, right? So I'll zoom in here a little bit more so you can see it. That's going to be very hard for high school hitters to pick up the difference, right, in where he is. Now his changeup is the most concentrated, which is awesome. That's where we want it. We were working on the spin because he was cutting the ball a little bit more, and so like I just kind of gave that example where I showed this to this. We were working on that, and that's where these two outliers on the fastballs came in. And then he had one curveball outlier that he just kind of released a little bit low. But these are all within an inch or two of each other, so that's gonna be hard to pick up as a hitter. All right, let me slide over on this side so you can see this part. So release matrix. This here is his averages for his release points. Okay, so you can see, and here I'll zoom in. Oh, I zoomed out a bit. You can see his average is really, really close together, right? Again, we're talking a couple inches here. So I want to move that fastball a little bit closer, right? He's releasing, his release point on the changeup and the curveball is 6'2" and he's at like 6'1 1/4 for the fastball. Now this is being really picky, but he's a very high level pitcher that's trying to go D1 or potentially in the draft. So we want to be as picky as we can with this, right? So we want to move those in. Up here we've got his vertical break chart. So this is how, and his horizontal break as well. This is how the ball's moving. How much movement is he getting, right? So on his curveball, in the Rapsodo factors out gravity. So if you're looking at data with gravity, it's going to be a little bit different. All right. Come on, switch over here. All right. So looking at this, right, he was getting about 12 inches on average of vertical drop on his curveball, right? And then again, he's at about 12 inches of horizontal break. This is a true curveball, all right? A little bit higher, you'd be more into a slurve. A little bit lower, you'd be at like a Kershaw type, like 12-6 curveball. Up here, we're getting more in the slider and the sweeper area if it was up there. But that's ideal. That's really where we want it. Now, his fastball's plotting up into the arm side, which is good. This is solid, right where we want the fastball. His changeup, that's his least used pitch and the pitch that he's least comfortable with. We're focusing a lot on that changeup this offseason. Ideally, that is going to drop down because we're working on pronating and trying to get the ball to drop a little bit more. Again, this is without gravity in play. So if you take in spin rate, this ball is spinning way higher, so it's going to get that movement coming, like it's going to stay straight longer. Okay, the changeup, his changeup has almost 1,000 RPMs less than his fastball. So the slower the RPMs, the more gravity is going to pull it down. So in reality, we know that this ball is going to end up more down here for his pitches. All right. Slide over here. This one's going to give basically more in-depth than the charts, right? So we've got on here, we've got, let's start down here. So let's just look at the fastball, okay? Best fastball that he threw, again, he was going at about probably 85-90% effort. 81.3 miles an hour. His average fastball velo was 80.1. Max spin rate. All right, so spin rate is huge when we're going to talk about how to locate the pitch. All right, his max spin rate was 2,500 RPMs, right? 2555. So when you convert that out, so there's a thing called Bauer units, and you don't have to worry about this. I do all the math for it. It's your spin rate divided by your velo, all right? And we can compare that to any big leaguer. We can compare that to any 9-year-old, okay? If you have higher than average, then on your fastball, if you have a higher than average Bauer unit, which is what that equation is, you're going to be better off elevating that pitch in the strike zone. You're going to get more fly ball outs, more pop-ups. If you have a lower spin rate or lower Bauer unit, lower than average, then you're going to want to keep that low in the zone and get some rollovers, and you're going to get more ground balls. Okay? Not saying that if you have a specific game plan for a specific batter, you're not going to elevate a low spin rate pitch, because it's going to be batter dependent what you know about the guys. But in general, that's a strategy that you would take on a fastball. Okay? All right. True spin and spin efficiency. Those are numbers that are going to tell us how much of the spin of the ball is contributing to its movement, okay? Again, this is something that I worry about when I'm giving cues and we're making adjustments. Not something that you as a parent or, unless you're a coach, it's not something that you really need to worry about. I'll handle all that on this end. But for a fastball, closer to 100%, you're going to get more use out of that spin, right? For his curveball, that's towards the high end that we want with the curveball. On the way he throws it, 70% efficiency is solid on that, and then 98% efficient on the changeup. This is an elite high school pitcher. The younger kids aren't going to have numbers necessarily that are going to reflect this. Gyro degree, that's telling me how much useless spin there is. Basically, like if you throw a football or if you look at a bullet spinning, that's going to have gyro spin on it. That's not inducing any movement on the pitch. So we're wasting, if you're looking at a fastball or a changeup and you have a high number on those, you're wasting spin, okay? Which for the higher level kids or the kids learning new pitches, on a fastball, let's say you've got 70% efficiency on that, right? That to me is an indicator, and to other coaches, that's an indicator that you're cutting the ball more. So you're losing out on that benefit of having a high RPM. You're not getting the most use out of it, right? Because you're wasting spin, and that would be a time that, okay, maybe we look to go to either a two-seam, which is a sinker, or we start designing the shape for a cutter, all right? Spin direction, again, that's telling me what direction the ball is spinning. So he's going to get a little bit of arm side run with a 1-4. It's basically on a clock, right? So these two, without gravity, are going to plot very similar to each other, and that one's going to drop off to the right, like towards 7 o'clock on a clock. Up here, we've got some maxes and averages. Again, this is something that I worry about. You guys, as a parent, don't need to worry about that. And even as a player, you don't have to worry about that. This is release point stuff. That's for me to teach you guys. All right. And then the cool thing about this, that helps a lot of pitchers, and I haven't selected which pitches we're going to even look at, so I'm going to do this kind of at random here. Let's look at the difference between a changeup and his curveball. Let's throw a fastball in there too. Let's see. We'll go with this 99.8 efficient fastball. All right, and then we're going to watch in 3D. We're going to watch how this comes in. Okay, so we're looking at tunneling on this. And this is actually a pretty good example. So on his curveball here, you can see how different that curveball looked from the other two pitches. The more different that looks, the batter's going to have a heads up on what pitch is coming, right? So the cue when he did that one, I remember talking to him about it. I said, hey, you gotta flatten that out, like let it ride in and then drop, because in essence, this is a very similar pitch location. It's the route that it took to get there that's different. So let me go back, see if I can find if I can find a couple better examples that are going to tunnel a little bit better. Let's look at those two, and let's see this one. Nope. Yeah, here we go. All right. So if we look at these, those pitches tunneled really well together, meaning they look the same until they start their break. All right. That's going to be these three pitches. That is very hard for the batter, especially if it's a lefty, to pick up what pitch is coming. All right. That's really good. And you could tell he flattened out that curveball on this one from having that huge like hump, right? So this is a basic overview on the benefits of doing Rapsodo sessions. We can use it to increase your fastball velo. We can use it to decide what pitches are best suited for you. If you want to learn a new pitch, and then for the older kids or the more advanced kids, it's really the only way to objectively and scientifically design a new pitch. So anybody can benefit from using it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. DMs are open, or shoot me an email.